Hi, everybody, again. Welcome back. It's Tuesday, January 26th. I've got our read aloud for today. I've got a good story that I really think you're going to like today. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about genres and what we call the theme. And I read to you a story where we had to kind of think about what the underlying message was and what the author believed, what the author wanted us to think. And that's kind of what theme means. And I showed you a way yesterday to help yourself kind of figure it out. So today I'm going to read to you a story called The Invisible Boy. It's by Trudy Ledwig and illustrated by Patrice Barton. And when we're finished reading it, we'll have a quick discussion about what you think the theme might be of this story. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. There he is. There's Brian. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first. Then the best friends of the best players. Then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. There's Brian. He walks away. Notice how the illustrator has him in black and white, whereas the other children are in color. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table, doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons, scaling tall buildings. You can see all of his creations. Thank you for toasting my marshmallow. I got you now. Crackers are space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student, to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. He says, it's bulgogi. What? Bulgogi, it's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? And this boy says, there's no way I'd eat boogergy. And the kids laugh. All of them. That is, except for Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian, You can see his picture of him eating it, and he says, "Yum." At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. He says, "You're Brian, right?" "Yeah." "Thanks for the note." "Hey, Justin," Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. "You're up next." "Sorry, I gotta go," says Justin. "By the way, that's a really cool drawing," he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up into twos or threes for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. "I'm already with Justin," says Emilio. "Find someone else." Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. And then Justin says, "Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio, let him work with us." He says, "Okay, I guess." Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. And here's their photograph. "Whoa, cool," says Emilio. "What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that?" "I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story," says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. And there they are working all together on their project, drawing and looking at the picture and writing. And there's what they came up with. They've got costumes, and they were very creative. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. "Brian," he hears someone shout. "Hey, Brian, over here." See, there's Justin and Emilio. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. "Cookie? Thanks." Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. And notice that he's now appearing in color because he feels like he's been accepted. And that's the end of our story, The Invisible Boy. Now, let's think for a minute. Was he really invisible? No. Why did he think he was invisible? It was because he felt very left out and did not feel accepted by other classmates in his school, in his room. And again, we talked about how the illustrator made him appear to look invisible in the story, to look like he was in black and white until the end when he appeared in color because he felt more visible and more accepted. Think about the theme of this story. It's not stated in the book itself. Theme we have to kind of think about on our own. And what does the author want us to believe? And here, I think that the author wants us to believe that kindness, showing kindness and acceptance towards others allows people to do their best and allows people to feel good about themselves. And just small acts of kindness can kind of help parents, teachers, children to accept others, and it helps others to feel that acceptance and that they matter. And so that's kind of the theme of this story, The Invisible Boy. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you back here tomorrow.